All right, so I'm just gonna start yapping and we'll go from there. My name is Chuck Henry. There's an awful lot of folks on here that already know who I am or have emailed with me more than once, and that's great. I am the IT coordinator for the Northern New York Library Network. I am also the project leader here for the New York State Historic Newspaper project. I've been doing this about 9 years or so. I was actually here when we shepherded the change from the previous newspaper site to the just previous newspaper site, getting to be confusing. So I originally, when I got here, we were running a newspaper site called the Northern New York Historic Newspapers. And at that point, we decided to make a change to a statewide. And so we rebranded as the New York State Historic Newspapers. And we transitioned from DT Search, which was the old piece of software, to the now previous piece of software, Cronam. And now here I am doing another transition from a previous piece of software to a new piece of software. So today we're focusing primarily on the search engine and some of the features around that search. I'm going to kind of move slow through a lot of the more the things that have changed. A lot of the basics are, and what your skill set that you already have with the old site still apply to some degree. There is now some more fine-grained and more specialized things you can do with the search that needs to be talked about, I think, and shown before it really kind of sinks in. We've been getting a lot of great questions on the contact form, and I've been trying to respond as much and as frequently as possible to those. And so this training session hopefully will help answer those, and this recording of this will be a reference that people will be able to use in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up old website. So give me just a moment. Absolutely, will do. Okay, let's share that. All right, I am just hoping everybody can see my screen. According to this, you can, and that's great. Okay, so one thing that I wanted to mention is that if you come up with questions or want to ask questions as we're going, feel free to put those right in the chat. My colleague Lydia is paying attention to the chat, and so she's going to feed me some stuff as we go, and we'll make sure that we get a chance to talk about them. What I'm hoping to do with this is I'm going to give you a little bit of a overview of the search and the search interfaces, and then I will pause a little bit so towards the end, so we got a good solid amount of time. So if folks have questions, they can ask those questions. So I've got the site all set up in front of me. So let's go ahead and get started. So there's a few things that we need to talk about right up front. Some things to talk about right up front is that this search is more or less using the same engine that we were using on the previous site. And we have all the same content as we did on the previous site. In fact, we have more now. And so the engine core isn't really terribly different. How you talk to the search and do that search core is a little bit different. And so we will look at those and approach those a little differently. So first things first, people always want to know, and it's always good to know, if you are starting fresh, clearing your search and starting over again, the icon at the very top of the screen, our masthead at the top, is the clear button. It doesn't say it on it, but whenever you click on this, it will clear whatever you type. Here's what I'm going to just type in for the sake of argument, because again, I am an egomaniac. I will type my own name into the search box here, and you'll notice that it's here, and I can do a search for Chuck. But if I move to other screens, so if I go back to home, you'll notice my name is still here. If I move over to counties, so if I click on St. Lawrence County to do a St. Lawrence County search, you'll notice my name is still here. If I go back to search, my name is still here. So the search follows you from screen to screen. So if you ever need to clear anything, you go up to the top, click on the title, in which case then it disappears from the screen. So that's my first tip. Remember, you can always clear and should clear everything for your search by clicking on that title at the top of the screen. So I'm going to go back to put, again, egomaniac search into the search engine. And so now it appears. So the first thing I should mention is that when you first come to this search screen, you might not see limit search by date or a title or a search summary or county. Over here, we've got some icons at the end of the search bar. The first one is the magnifying glass, and that launches your search. It's like hitting enter in a search box. But the next one over here is the advanced search. Turn this baby on when you get here, okay? Because you will use it. This is all search functionality that we had on the previous site. And so, you're used to seeing it. Go ahead and put it back. Once you get kind of advanced and you start playing with the facets, you might not need this search quite as much, but it's a great way to do it, to turn that on. The next symbol down on here is the question mark. This is actually the help, and it will bring up a help form that floats over top so you can read the search. A lot of what we're talking about today will come off of the screen, and I'll show you examples from this. And the next one down is search history. So if you are a logged in user of the site, meaning you've created your user account, you'll be able to call up your search history and it will give you the last 10 searches that you've run in this interface. And it's really, really useful. Okay, so hint, hint, power user tip, create an account. You know you want to. Okay, so let's go back to the box. Let's talk about Chuck Henry here. You'll notice that I put in here and there are no capitals. Okay, this is my first search tip for you. This search engine is not case sensitive. Okay, so it's not going to care about capital or lowercase letter. It will search them both equally. This is a little bit of a change from the last one. The last one would do capital searches, but it only did it to the beginning of phrases. So like Chuck, the capital C at the top, but the second word it wouldn't. It was always a weird wrinkle in the old engine. The other thing about this engine is it will not keep any form of punctuation. So if you put a period in, it strips it out of the search. It doesn't care about periods. You put exclamation points or colons or semicolons or anything else, they get stripped out, okay? So don't bother. If you're looking for a middle initial, just go ahead and type the middle initial. Don't put the period after it like you might in that. So in this case, I have Chuck Henry. And so just like in the old site, when you put two words together like that, it would search through every page on the site, looking for every page that had the word Chuck in it. And then it would then go through and look at every page on the site and find pages that had Henry on it. And then it would then check to see if there were any matches between those two separate lists. So therefore, what you're ending up with are pages that have Chuck and Henry on them, but not necessarily together, okay? So I'm going to go ahead right now, since I've done this search, and I'm going to go down here and look at these. Oh, I should stop and show you something cool first. So you'll notice I have Chuck Henry, and we've got a list of results here, and you'll see that Chuck is highlighted in yellow. By the way, we have asked Veridian to change the yellow highlighting to a pinkish red color like we had on the previous site. You'll thank me later, especially with newspapers that are very dense and have a lot of text. But here's the thing I want to show you. This is the OCR text of that page, kind of, sort of, where that's one of my search terms appears. There's this cool thing up here where it says search summaries, and it says none, text, and images, and text is highlighted. If you change it to images, and then go back up here and hit your magnifying glass to rerun the search, what will appear instead of the text, I said, what will appear instead, probably what's happening is that because the site is so very new, an awful lot of these searches are new. And so it's re-rendering the image that's supposed to be there. Come on, baby, you can do it. That's very strange that it's being so slow. One of the things that we've been so excited about with this site is that it's much faster than the previous one was. But it's proving me wrong just because I'm on a call with everyone. So here's an example down here. You'll notice that it's rendered now, the Racket, which is the SUNY Potsdam student newspaper, I believe. And it's now got Chuck highlighted so I can see it inside the page preview. And that's really cool because then you can get kind of a context about where that photo or that response appears. I was looking at Chuck Kelly photo, which is why it popped into my head. So now you get to see a little bit of this, okay? And as you move down through the list, you can kind of see what you're looking. Ooh, Chuck steaks, sounds yummy. So anyway, the idea is then you can take one of these pages and you can click on it. And you will jump into the page. Now you remember I said that it will look for every page that has Chuck and Henry on it as well. And you'll notice that here on this page, and this is a prime example why we want to move to the red, the little red pinky, is because it's a little hard to see here. But I can zoom in and look at the responses. So somewhere on this page, oh, there's Henry, lots of Henrys. Hey, look, there's a Chuck down here and a Chuck over here and a Chuck over there. Here a Chuck, there a Chuck, everywhere a Chuck, Chuck. But anyway, the idea is that it's here. To show you, jump into the page just a minute for a couple of reasons. First of all, I have a mouse that's got a little scrolly wheel on it, and I can scroll in and out on this page super easy from here. But if I wanted to, I could also use this plus and minus key view magnifying glass on the side here, and I can zoom in and out using that as well, okay? So, okay, I've looked at this page. This clearly is nothing that I'm interested in. If I want to go back to the search, up here at the top, just above where the window is, you'll notice there's a thing that looks like a magnifying glass, but it's got an arrow in it. And if you hover over it, it says back to the results list. And you can click on that, and it will return you back to the results list that you were just looking at. So you're not losing anything by jumping in and looking at these things. So already, this is just a plain old Chuck Henry, okay? Great. So if you want to search for exactly a Chuck Henry, you put quotes around it. Now, on the old site, quotes were stripped out, meaning you could quote to your heart's content and the search engine wouldn't care. But we had also defaulted the old search engine to what was a search within three or a search within three, I think it was. And so the idea is that it would take them and try to group them together. Well, this one is similar in that it's looking specifically for Chuck and Henry right next to each other. So I'm going to run that search. So we had 73,000 results before. Let's run the search again. And now we're down to 110 results, which is pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and turn this back to text because the image rendering appears to be pretty slow. And that may be partially because I'm on Zoom and I'm like eating a lot of bandwidth on this. So let's do a... Goodness, we're slow. I am not happy about that. Nope, not staging. We wanted status. Where's status? There's status. Give me the status out of curiosity. All right, so we're back to the main screen here. Here we go. So now I've got Chuck in quotes and Henry. And so now we're beginning to see results with Chuck and Henry close together. And so that is what you'd expect from a quote search. So that's an exact phrase. Now, if I'm looking for a name and there might be a middle initial in there, there's some techniques that we can use to get that. And this is actually contained in that documentation. You can do what's called a fuzzy search. And so the idea is that you use a tilde and then a number. So the tilde key on most keyboards is in the upper left-hand corner. On mine, it's a shift. I'm not sure on PC keyboards. I'm on a Mac keyboard. On PC keyboards, it might be. Does that one have a tilde in the upper left? Yeah. So the tilde key is, generally speaking, the upper left. And so what that does is it says, okay, I'm looking for Chuck Henry, and I'm being fuzzy in that I want those words within 3. Okay, you can set that to any value you want. You want it within 10? Great. You want it within 15? Great. You can put that tilde in there. And so what that tilde does is it tells it to get fuzzy with its search. So I'm going to go ahead and click that just to see what results. We had 110 results previously. I don't think there's any. Chuck is not my real name. So there's not any results that have a middle initial for Chuck Henry, I don't believe. Why is it so pokey? There's an awful lot of people using the site right this second. Okay, so that's understandable. We'll have to talk a little bit more with them about performance issues as we move on. So, okay, here's my results. So it went back out to 492 because now we're spacing out that a little bit. So Chuck and Henry, and within 3 searches, within 3 words. We some like over here. This one actually like put the brackets in there because that was something that was on that page. So we were looking through, hey, this is a great result where the capitalization didn't matter. Okay. So that's one thing that people always wanted to know. How do I search within 3? That's one of them. So let's talk about kind of a little bit of a dirty word, Boolean. And here's why it's a dirty word. Back when we had the first newspaper site, the Northern New York Historic Newspapers, it was a pure Boolean search engine back in the day. And people were very good at writing Boolean searches. And I'll talk about what that means. All you librarians on the call are probably rolling your eyes because you're bored to death of Boolean. But for everyone else, the old site had Boolean searching. And when we moved to Cronam, which was the previous website, Boolean no longer worked. And it drove people bonkers because it was no longer possible to do. Well, now here we are now on the next version of the site, and Boolean is back. However, in the post-Google search engine era, Boolean has kind of become a lost art, meaning most people don't realize that you don't have to Boolean on Google anymore. Google just has fancy software programming that takes care of that work for you. But Boolean actually gives you a lot of control over your searches. Now, for name searches, if you're doing genealogy, it's not as useful. But if you're doing research where you are looking for specific terms or sets of specific terms, then you are going to be really interested in using and want to kind of practice a little bit with your Boolean search. So in the case of Booleans, let's do a fairly New York style search. We have Erie Canal. All right, great. So as I said before, Erie and Canal, what we'll get is every page that's got Erie and Canal somewhere in the page together. Doesn't necessarily mean that they are like together as a term. It just means they're there. So let's go ahead and run this search. Hey, much faster. Love it. So the first, notice Canal is highlighted, but I bet you Erie's somewhere in that page. If we went to look, let's go ahead and poke over here and see. It doesn't necessarily mean that Erie and Canal are together. They just happen to be on the same page. So let's see what this article is about. Canal, still a major NYS attraction. All right. So that's probably related, but it didn't get, who knows, maybe it wouldn't necessarily. You can Boolean by putting certain terms into your search, but they have to be in capitals. So this is an example where the capitalization matters. So I'm going to say Erie and canal. So what that means is that the page absolutely must have Erie and canal. Not a huge difference in what we were doing, right? Let's check. We had 278,000 results. Let's see if we get a different result. Nope, because we're already kind of doing and by leaving it out. But we could do some other phrases in this. So Erie and canal, we could do or, in which case then we do something like, oops, I have to capitalize, don't forget to capitalize. So Erie or Suez. So in this case, we are looking for Erie, which is Erie Canal in New York, Suez Canal, not around here. So now what we'll get is results that are one or the other. Well, that's great. Oops, Suez here and down. All results either Erie or Suez. So what that means is now we have a lot of results. So let's get a little more specific. Say, for instance, we're specifically looking for Erie Canal and Suez Canal together. I'm going to put some quotes around this bad boy. And then we're going to say, and canal. So now what we're going to get is hopefully a bunch of stuff about canals. Let's see. So we went down from our million pages that had those two phrases to 300,000. So it's a little high still, but not bad. I put these together just brackets. So that way it's easier for me to read, and it's also easier for the engine to parse as well. So now all of these are going to have something about the Erie Canal or the Suez Canal, in case I'm really into canals this week, I guess. So another thing you can add to this as well, that we're doing Erie again, another search phrase is not. So in this case, I am looking for results that include Erie, but I'm specifically not looking for canal. I want to see non-canal related stuff because I've searched for too much canal and I'm done with it. So here we go. We jump in and these are results now for Erie, and I'm skipping everything. And so in this case, we're going to get a lot of street names and place names and county names and the like as we go down through these. So that's a lot of good results. So that's Boolean. There's a section in the help file about Boolean. Have a look at it, see what you think, because there is some search options you might enjoy, especially not. Like if you're looking for a particular name and there's some aspect, like you're searching for a Chuck Henry and it's not this Chuck Henry, so you want to go, hey, not that. Okay, this is a possibility here too. So some other things I wanted to point out that I think are interesting, but I'm not sure I've found a great use for them yet, but maybe you will. And if you do, let me know, because I'm really, one of the things that we can do, wildcard searches. So the idea being is that if you think that, say, for instance, I'm really interested in my mom and I want to search for mom, but I think that there might be a possibility that there's some OCR errors in that. By the way, OCR, optical character recognition, that's the text that's been read from the newspaper page that we use to search on. It's a great process, but it is far from foolproof. So be aware of that, as you probably were before. Be aware of that. So the idea here is I can put a question mark in, and what it'll do is it'll search for things where the center character like that can be anything, can be any variation on that. And so here's a result that looks like that. So for instance, I have this one where it's MMM, this one where it's MEM. If we keep going down the line, oh, here's a mom, MOM. So the idea is that question mark becomes a wild. Okay. Another thing too is a search where you can use an asterisk. So the idea is now it will search for any word starting with, in this case, ANTI, and then the star is anything on the tail end. So let's see what types of things come up when we type the star or an asterisk. So antiques, which probably is an OCR misspelling. Antrofitting, probably a misspelling. Antiques, anti-knock, anticipated. So you can use that to kind of search. I think this might be useful if a spelling of a name is off. You might be able to put a little bit between the question mark and the asterisk, be able to search for parts of names, which might be interesting as well. Okay. So I've kind of talked about all this stuff, and this is all like stupid search box tricks. Let's talk about some non-stupid search box tricks for a minute. So people ask us about research questions all the time, and we really don't have the time to answer research questions for people. However, I did have a guy send me an email where he was asking about a very specific thing that he remembered, but he couldn't seem to find in the old newspaper site. And so when we moved to the new one, he's like, I couldn't find it in the old one. I'm not sure I can find it in the new one. And so what he was asking about, and I'll show you the search because it's kind of fun. This was what he wrote. He was asking about, he remembered a murder that happened sometime in the 1970s where a young man from Canandaigua murdered an old man in his home on the Amon Road off County Route 14. And he puts a little bit of details. And then he remembered that the older man's name might be something like Burmeister. And so I highlighted the things I thought were interesting bits of information I could search for. Now, I didn't know before I started searching for this what the heck he was talking about. I couldn't, Amon Road, it's not a North Country thing, clearly. Town of West Bloomfield, though, triggered for me the thought that, hey, maybe I could look that up. And so I did. I did a little bit of search on that. And what I discovered is that the town of West Bloomfield, and I'm sure there's probably someone here on the call who is losing their mind because they're like, I know exactly where that is. Well, I'm a North Country boy. I don't know every corner of the state. But what I did discover is that is actually my search in Ontario County. So I just clicked on Ontario, and you'll notice it moved me to the county search. And now Ontario is selected. So I was not going to be so prideful as to think that I was going to find all my results right away in Ontario County. So I broadened my search out a little bit by selecting these other counties that surround it. So Monroe, I figured, was a good one because Rochester is in Monroe. So if there's a newspaper in the Rochester region, I have Wayne seemed like a reasonable one. And I put Livingston in as well because I figured you might as well hit the area broadly. And so now I've got this search that's in this area here. And I'm like, okay, that looks pretty good, right? So I'm like, all right, so I'm going to begin my search. Well, what terms could I use? Well, Canandaigua seems like a good thing to put a search in there for. And I was thinking, okay, what else? Well, murder? Let's put murder in here and see what happens. Oops. Helps if you spell murder right. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the search button. And so now what has happened is I'm getting a number of results, more than I'm going to be willing to probably dig through. But now let's talk about some of the more advanced features available here, okay? Just like on the old site, I could limit by date, and I'm going to show you an easier way to limit by date. You can put the literal day, month, and year for your searches in, just like you could on the old site. You could limit by title, but I didn't limit by title. I wanted just the counties to be the limiting factor. And then over here, we've got two different fields. We've got a county list, and you'll notice that there isn't a highlight in it. And the reason for it is because as I scroll down, the counties I selected on the last screen are going to appear on this list. And you'll notice it says all cities over here. Now, just like on the old site, I don't recommend limit city and at the same time, because it's so easy to not let, select a city that isn't in that county, in which case then you'll get no results at all. The old site edited this form so you couldn't select both. It was an attempt to help you. This one lets you select both silly, like a silly person. Don't try to be careful about that. Now you'll notice here at the top, just beneath this advanced search stuff, it says county for counties, and it's got a little X next to it. So what that means is that this search now is reduced by reduced to just those 4 counties. So now let's look at some of this other stuff that's along the side here. This is really neat stuff. I think this is where it's fun, because now you can kind of drill down a little deeper, a little tighter into what you're looking for. So the first one here is decade. Could I put in the dates up above? Yeah, totally. But this is right here. I can just point and click. So in this case, our gentleman said it was in the 1970s. So let's go down to 1970. So we're going to assume 1970 through 1979. And I just clicked on it. And so now it's a rerun that search with the decade selected and the county selected. And now that I have this cool little chart, and it tells me the number of results in each of those years going down through. So there's a lot of stuff in 1976. Apparently that must have been a murdery year in these 4 counties. So just to point out on the screen too is you'll notice that we have now more years listed, so we can actually select out and go drill deeper into that particular year if we want. But we also have beneath it the publications involved. So now we can see how many publications have results and how many results for that publication. So I can actually drill deeper down into a particular title for that item. Then beneath that, we've got our counties and how many of those results came from the various counties. So while I started my search with the idea that it might be Ontario, Monroe actually has a lot, Wayne and Monroe actually have a lot more results. So maybe it's possible what we're talking about is in Wayne or Monroe. Then beneath that, we've got cities. So now from here, you can drill down even closer to particular cities. And these are the cities of publication. I always have to put a caveat when we talk about cities in newspapers. The information we're working from is where the newspaper was published, not necessarily the area of coverage for the newspaper. This is especially true where the counties are small. You might have a title that's published in a particular county, but it covers 3 or 4 or 5 towns that lapse over in the county next door. Okay, so this is the city publication where the newspaper is headquartered. If I go further down the list, you now have also the collection, meaning where the newspaper came from, who gave us the newspaper to put here on the site. Why you'd want to search this in particular, I don't know, but it's there if it's an option. So you can drill down to a particular collection for a particular newspaper provider of library or historical association or what have you. So, okay, I've got this date on murder that I'm not having a lot of luck on so far. I mean, okay, we've got a suspect held for murder of Nancy Davis. I think we were talking about an old man, might have been Burmeister. All right, let's keep looking down through these results. So we're looking through Canandaigua, let's see, love, murder, and madness. Miss Gil, there's some great responses. Like I love like poking around on some of these. So nothing seems to be jumping right out at me. All right, cool. So I've got Canandaigua murder. Let's try that Amen Road. Let's see if that helps. So I'm going to put murder, amen, and let's put RD for road. Let's try that. Let's see how that goes. No results, too much. I wonder if we Let's take just road out of that, see what happens. Oh, no love there either. I wonder if there might be an extra like N on that. Let's put a question mark because I've a man a N road. Give that a shot. It's got one, but I don't see it's just the that. Let's put a and. Let's put, oops, Boolean and together in there and see what we can get. Still no love, just that one result. Getting tricky here. Let's go and I'm going to try the asterisks for a word string and see what comes up. Still no love. All right. So you get an idea of where I go. Hit these things a little harder. Let's see about Burmeister. Since this guy thought it might be the guy's name. And let's put murder. Oh, we've got a couple. Look down here, like this result here. In January, marked by the story of the murder of George Burmeister, whose body. So this looks like a possibility. And so does this one. Look, they're both from the Honeyoy, I believe is how you say that. Somebody probably on the chat is screaming like, no. Okay, so anyway, Honeyoy, I come from the North Country. Everything is named silly here, pronounced silly here. So this looks like a possibility. Excellent. Let's check this first one and see if it's something that might be what this guy is talking about. Recluse found murdered, Canandaigua man charged. Oh, yeah, I think this might be where we're talking. The body of 40-year-old Burmeister was found in his home in Amon, 2 N's. Yay, road in Menden. All right, so now we've got, I think, what this gentleman was talking about. So I'm a researcher. I want to make sure that I'm saving this so that way I can share it with our friend later. I have a user account. And again, this is a great tip for using user accounts. I'm going to go over to this little toolbar over here. There's a plus sign. Click the plus sign and it says add to private list. And I'm going to create a new private list. And I'm going to say murder. Okay, and I'm going to say first story about Meister murder. So I've got a note. I've created a new list. I'm going to say add. Let's go back and look at that other result to see if we can find information of this. This is January of the following year, a year later, essentially. And here's our highlights. We'll get the load. And so we're going to zoom in on the news highlights. News highlights of 73. Our first issue in January is marked by the story of the murder of George Burmeister. His body was discovered after Christmas. All right. So here's what I am going to do is I'm just going to add this to. We're going to put it in our murder list. And then we're going to say mention on recap. We'll go back to the search list. So what's neat about this is then I can go in and I can find more details and I can search further to see if I can find more information. Like the murderer, for instance, or the accused murderer at this point, is David P. Crossett of Hopewell Town Line, was apprehended near Holcomb. So there we go. I guess he's from Canandaigua. Did we see that anywhere in the rest of the story? Oh, yeah. So Sheriff's Department arrested a Canandaigua man in connection with the shooting. So yes, our guy here was correct. It was a young man from Canandaigua, Amon Road, Burmeister. So he remembered the guy's name exactly, which is great. So I was creating that list let's look at the list real briefly, so that way you get a quick look at what you can do with the list. So I'm going to go over here to my account. I'm going to go to my private lists, and over here I have my murder list, which sounds horrific. I have a murder list. That's going to be a quote that gets me kicked off flights. Anyway, here's a murder list. And so I've got my murder list. And one of the cool things about this is you can go in and you can edit your notes on your murder list. And you can also then click the email button, in which case then you can do that, and it will email it to your email address. And then once you have it in an email, you can print it, you can email it to somebody else. I could see if you are a person doing research for other people, this might actually be a really great feat, because your results to a list and then share that list with whoever your patron or client might be that you're doing that research for. So that's a lot of the things that I wanted to discuss as far as the search goes. Oh, by the way, if you're running a search and you decide something isn't terribly useful, you can clear this faceting by clicking on that little X. I meant to mention it at the time. So right now, maybe the 4-county thing isn't terribly useful for me. So I pull it out of there, and we get some more results appearing here. I don't know if any of these are really great. Oh, hey, Courier Express, June 1st, 1973. This probably has something to do with Burmeister. Youth pleads guilty in man's death. Hey, there's our little news blurb. Let's add that to the list while we're here. Bleeding. So again, I'm going to click on this happy little arrow to go back. Oh, before I do that, let's talk about the search interface a little, the viewing interface, just a tiny bit. You'll notice that there are 2 arrows left and right. This goes to the next and the last result in your search. So you can actually move from result to result without having to go back to the main screen again. This one over here is actually where it shows you the full the issue. So in this case, if I use the forward arrow, it'll go to the next issue of the paper. This one will go to the last issue of the paper, and this one will jump out to the landing page with all the dates for the issues for this title. Nice little navigation bit, so you can jump pretty easily. I think this part right here is going to be super useful for people, because you can jump and basically jump between your search results and see them one after another after another. In fact, let's do that just out of curiosity. What's the next one? Spin, 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 spin. I promise it's faster most of the time. Here we go. What's the next result? Oh, same result as the last one. It must have been inside the same paper. We do have repeating pages on occasion, as I'm sure our longtime fans know. All right, so I'm back to the main search page. It's about 15 minutes longer in the session. Do we have some questions or some things that people are interested in knowing more about? Oops, I'm going to clear this search by going up here. And now my search is clear. Anything interesting? What do we got? All right. I'm just panning through. I heard someone's microphone come on. Is there someone that has a specific question?
Oh, there is a question. What if an article is continued from the front page to the inside pages of the paper? Can you scroll through one issue?
Yes. Let me show you that. I'm going to jump back into the private list. Let's grab one of our murder pages. Let's do the earliest murder page. So the beautiful part about the new viewer is, rather than showing you a single page at a time, what you're going to get is you're going to get that page, the issue, in the same display. So this was our original search, and we came across these guys. But you'll notice if I scroll, this is the rest of that same issue. So I can actually move from page to page inside and see more. So if it says continued on page 4, I can go back through and find page 4. Now, the caution I have about our newspapers is the pages may not always be in order. Sometimes they were photographed in out of order because it was just what page they could come across when. Sometimes processing errors have caused the pages to be out of order. So sometimes you might have to hunt around a little bit to find the right page. It may not necessarily be literally the 4th page from the front. Yes, absolutely. So that's that. The other thing too is and there are some viewing options over here that are worth talking about briefly while we're looking at this. Down, I've talked about the plus and minus where you can zoom in and zoom out, but the ones beneath it change how that fits to the screen. If you use the one that fits to width, it will make the page fit on the screen so you can see it up close and personal. If you use the ones that up and down, it will fit the top and bottom to the page like that. So you can see inside that window the page. The one beneath it is really cool. What that one is that's a rotation tool. So you can actually rotate the page because, as you know, there are some of the pages that we have on the site that are pretty poorly rotated. And so what that allows you to do is very comfortably rotate a page that might be poorly rotated or a page that was purposely rotated poorly. Like we have election results that were very often, rather than being or election ballot forms, that rather than being put on the newspaper page in portrait mode, landscape mode instead. And so that actually lets you spin it around so you can look at it. Another option that's on this menu is the PDF. So if you want the PDF of this particular issue or of the page, you can do that. So for instance, if I am, let me go back to our front page. Oh, here's our front page right here. I can click on the PDF and it will actually download the PDF page for me. Okay, but, and here's the trick, you have to be a logged in user to download PDFs now. This is a trade-off we made. If you remember on the old site, if you tried to download a PDF, you'd very often get a Cloudflare prove that you're human CAPTCHA thing. We don't do that anymore. Instead, we prove that you're human by having an email address. And once we have your email address, then we assume that you're human and you can download the PDFs. So once you're logged in, you can download PDFs freely. There's a lot of great reasons to do that. Very good.
There's just one other question.
Sure. What other question do we have?
I think we can follow up afterwards, but it's just that someone was like, if we want to make corrections to one of the titles or dates in the newspaper, the best way to get in touch with us to, I guess, edit that would be to contact us through our contact us page.
Correct. Yes, absolutely. In the past, corrections were very hard to do because we were always prioritizing adding new material. This company, what we're doing with the new site, changes are going to be easier for us to be able to do. So please, if you find something that's odd, let me know. There are mistakes in 12, almost 13 million pages. I am guaranteed that there's probably a few errors. So feel free to share them with us. That's still the best way to go about doing that.
One other question. Is there a storage issue? Just wondering about the reason for the limit on the number of files that people can create when on their account. Is there a limit on the number of files when you go to my account? Okay. And you're looking at like how many files can you have in your murder list? Is there a cap?
There is for the private lists. I don't believe there's a cap. Okay. However, if you go to recent activity, inside of your recent activity, it will only keep the top 10, the most recent 10. I'm not sure why that's limitation is there. It's probably a storage issue when you get right down to it. But 10 is all you get on your history for recently searched and recently viewed.
We don't want to keep everybody's history of searches either.
Yeah, that's true to some degree as well. The other thing too is when you first create an account, the store history of searches and viewed items is shut off. So you'll have to manually go into your My Account, recent activities, and turn it on. Okay, so if you're interested in doing that, that's the way to go about doing that.
I'm just checking to make sure that answered the question.
Yep. Great, thank you, Mary. So yeah, it's I'm trying to think if there's any other really interesting things that we need to talk about, as long as we're talking, as long as we got a minute or two. Like I said, corrections are much easier to do than they were previously. If you're a contributor, meaning you're a library or historical association or museum, and you've given us material, feel free to have a look at what you have here under, if you go to collection and then you find your collection on this list, have a look and see if it matches your expectations of what you think we have for you. I am right now, I'm doing the rather difficult, almost time traveler-esque job of digging around in all the files that we've collected in the last 10 years and looking at all the projects that we have open that we never quite completed for one reason or another. And I'm kind of going through and hitting them to see if I have everything. Because it's possible small jobs or projects that we wanted to add to the newspaper site but never quite made it because we were lacking info or contact broke down with someone, I'm going through and working on right now. So we do have more files, more backlog files that will be appearing here in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully, I might actually have all the backlog material, fingers crossed, uploaded by the end of September. So if you don't see something or you haven't heard from me for a while and you were expecting something, please reach out. I'll be happy to dig around. It would be helpful to me so I can dig around and see what's going on. All right. Anything else?
No, everybody, and these newspapers are free to access online. It's very radical.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yes, Mary, Mary O'Grady said, did you say that all the backlog material info will be uploaded by the end of September? Yes, that's the hope. We should be 100% caught up by the end of September, which, by the way, is the weirdest thing ever because we've never, ever been caught up. ever. So I'm excited about that. We'll have all our content posted. If it's something that hasn't been posted, it's because there's a problem or an issue or something we need to work through. So yeah, we'll be caught up. It'll be great. I'm excited. All right. So I think that's just about it. All right. Thanks everybody for coming. Thanks for being a fan of the website. And if you have questions, if you already know my email address, feel free to, hey, there's,
how's it go?
Hi, Lydia.
I'm here.
So if you have questions or concerns or you're a contributor and have problems, reach out to me. If you don't have my email address, feel free to just jump into the contact form and fill it out. I respond to those. I've been trying to be better about responding to those since the new website. I've been responding at the same day. So reach out and we'll get you solved. So thanks a lot. Have a great day.